I am very excited to talk today with Mike Menahem from GovBidPro.com. So Mike is an expert in government contracting, and it's so good to see you, my friend. How are you today?
Good to be here. Thank you, Andres, for the invitation. It's good to be here and to talk to small businesses about it's a great opportunity in the B2G space, the business to government contracting space, which I've been in going on 20 years now.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about your background. And the work that you're doing is very interesting for a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. So we wanted to touch base on to government contract bids and how to win on those government contract bids and how minority-owned small businesses are securing opportunities in the government contract space. I wanted to give a little bit of a background of who you are for those that are listening to us and they're watching us. So Mike Menahem is the founder of GovBidPro.com, and he's a seasoned expert in government contracting with over 9 years of experience, and he specializes in bid capture, proposal, preparation, and contract management, helping small businesses, including woman-owned, veteran-owned, and minority-owned firms succeed in the government contract markets. Mike is an MBA graduate from CW Post College of Management, and Mike also has banking and mortgage background, and you're a proud Buffalo native and a fan of the Sabres with offices right now in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Tampa, Florida. Did I miss anything, Mike?
No, that's perfect. That is, and you and I know each other well, so that's in the Buffalo Bills too. They're in the playoffs, so.
Here we go, my friend. So shout out to those fans over there. So Mike,
Yeah.
You not only have 9 years of experience, but you also go beyond that, from your experience. Expand a little bit about your background, if you may.
Sure, absolutely. So my background's actually in a little bit of a subprime mortgage and finance. I was with a mortgage company and then a bank. I did their home equity lines of credit. The bank did get bought out. So I found myself leaving the bank before the merger and went down to Florida and got a job with an IT company that dealt with surveillance mostly, that had positioners. They were subcontractors for Raytheon. This is going back almost 20, and they were looking for a sales manager and someone to go to trade shows in Orlando and Las Vegas. And so, just one day we were like, hey, we should be the prime contractors. We should be the Raytheon. We should have the contract, not be the subcontractor. And so we ended up bidding and going and doing on average about 200 bids a year for over 10 years and winning back again, almost 20 years. Just like anything else, I wanted to share that experience because that gave so much volume and repetition. So 9 years ago, I started GovBidPro, went on my own, put a shingle out. And with GovBidPro, I'm exposed to IT companies and real estate construction companies, as well as medical device, nurse staffing, and other consulting and support companies that support the government. And I know we're going to talk about that later in their bidding process. So I can share my experience over at CFM, the IT company, with GovBidPro and share with them how I do it. There is a process, and there's a value add too to our service as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that, is where we will find the bid that saves you, the small business owners, the time. You don't have to sit there on SAM.gov or on other websites. We do it for you, send you the bid, say, hey, this bid looks good. It's due in the future. It looks like it's a good fit for you. There's 40,000 bids out there. And now, as we know, I'm kind of scratching the surface here, but we're in a transition.
I want to make sure that, we discuss a couple of things. There are steps to everything, and most people don't even know how to start. They don't even know what opportunities are in the government contract.
Right.
And that's why when we were talking about the types of, and you were mentioning the type of industries that you've seen into the space when you've seen, basically the type of opportunities that are out there. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see that basically we think about the government, we got to think about the government like house. So when you buy a house, you think, okay, I have my house, great. Now I need to maintain the house. I need to make sure that everything functions properly. So you have plumbing, you have your electrical, you got your roofing, you got all of those things. So the government has a lot of needs of goods and services, and it needs to contract small to mid-sized businesses to be able to suffice in industries like we talk about technology, we talk about office space and maintenance, we talk about medical equipment, we talk about construction, we talk about transporting, in all realms. And then we also talk about food and beverage. So there is so many industries that really need to help the government to be able to keep the house in order. Does that make sense? Is that a good analogy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about that. And I appreciate you bringing that up is the fact that, let's say, take, for example, construction and real estate. The government is going to put out a bid. And this is what's great about working with the government. Number one, they're not going to go out of business. Whether it's someone that's going to cut back, there's someone going to spend less. Some will spend more on defense. Some will spend more on solar panels, so in green energy. And we've seen that. The great thing is, number one, government's not going out of business. Number two, if you do your job and you do everything contractually correct, you will get paid. Now, as a small business, we all know sometimes we don't get paid from other small businesses. They go out of business, they don't pay, you take them to collections. With government, if you do it right and you deliver the laptops and you deliver the surveillance cameras, that there's a receiving report, you've found the bid, you submitted properly, you submitted all your documents, we help you with that. You've delivered everything. We do that in contract management, logistics. You've invoiced everything correctly. The T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, you're going to get paid. And it's through wire transfer. So that's what's great for small businesses. This is why with CFM, the other company I was with, they were like, hey, this is a safe dollar, is what we call it. It's a safe dollar because it's government. If we do our job.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike, but I wanted to ask you. So I wanted for you to mention or expand a little more of why small businesses and medium-sized businesses, minority-owned, woman-owned, really they have a great opportunity to work with the government. What are the benefits to work with the government?
Right. So number one, with small businesses, it's about 26% of our budget, our federal government budget, is going to go to small businesses right off the top. So for example, a company like Dell Computers, right, or HP Computers, we've heard of both those companies, or IBM, they're not going to bid on 50 laptops or 100 laptops. They're going to bid on the much bigger projects, right? The cybersecurity project, right? That kind of thing. That's billions of dollars. You and I are not going to do that. But I could resell laptops to the government. So the smaller contract, the purchase orders, for small businesses, it's $25,000 up to $150,000. That's what the government says that we can handle with our credit, which they're right. I can take on a purchase order of $100,000, pay $90,000, right, to the supplier and make $10,000. For example, it's hypothetical. So, but that's a small business, do that all day long. Now, 100 million, it's a different story, right? I'd have to go and borrow tons of money, right? So that's the big thing is the dollar amount. It's 25,000, 150,000. That's one thing. Number two, there is the bids on SAM.gov are set aside for small businesses. The government, the contract manager is going to look at all the needs that they have for, let's say, Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. They're going to look at that and go, hey, these right here, we could buy these 25 surveillance cameras from small business. So let's make that set aside. Now let's take it a step further. The government can also say, hey, we've got this $5 million of this $10 billion budget, or woman-owned set aside, or 8A set aside, 8A is minority-owned, or hub zone set aside, historically underutilized business zone. There's hub zones all over the country, in Buffalo and Detroit, and some areas where there's steel mills and manufacturing plants in the past, right? There's veteran-owned businesses, and then there's service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. So now you've got small business set aside, and then on top of that, now you're a small business, and you're a woman-owned, and you're veteran-owned, and you may be service-disabled veteran-owned, and you get these certifications with the specific agency that handles it. So, for example, if you wanted to be veteran-owned and to have that certification, you would have to go to the Veterans Administration and get this piece of paper saying, hey, I'm a veteran-owned business. And then you put that in your capability statement, and the government looks it up and says, hey, you're veteran-owned. You can bid on this over here because this is a veteran-owned, set-aside bid for coffee, or whatever. And by the way, the government buys everything. But
no, very, very important, because it's given a little bit of a context, especially for people. Let's say we have, in our audience, we have people that maybe have heard of government, contract bidding, but they really haven't dabbled into it. Some of them have done it and maybe have done it incorrectly, or they haven't, got really through correctly into winning these bids. So one of the things I wanted to point out, and I'm gonna go back here to the screen, is that Government Pro and Mike and his team, really understands, a lot of what the government is looking for, all the needs for goods and services. And Mike and his team look into all of the bids, basically structure, all of the sourcing, all of the proposals, and the contract management of those proposals as well, to help small to mid-sized businesses win in the government contracting. So it's very important that we understand the opportunity, because we don't really think about, and sometimes we're in the private sector or sufficing private needs for goods and services, but we don't look into the government. The government of the United States of America. So it's great. You have $759 billion of fiscal year obligations in 2023. This is just to give a perspective of how big the government really is and how much it needs to suffice for those goods and services. So the government is looking to make sure that it fulfills the departments of Veteran Affairs, like they spent about $61.6 billion in 2023. The Department of Energy was about $46.3 billion. The Department of Human Health and Human Services was about $38.5. Then would you go into General Services Administration, Department of Homeland Security, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Other federal agencies, they account for about $53 billion, about half of that budget on the civilian federal agencies. And then if you look at, basically all of the other more specialized sectors like the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, and other defense agencies, they accounted about $456 billion of what the government spends. And it's really good to understand how big it is, because the opportunity is big and they need all of these small businesses, all of the people that you're talking to, right now, and that you've been talking to for years, helping them get into those government contracts. They need to understand there's so many opportunities. So is it industry specific that you find that the people get into the government contracting? Tell us a little bit about that, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I just want to add to as an exclamation point to what you just said. The other piece of our service that I think is great is that we could keep our thumb on the pulse on current events. And, as we know, there's two conflicts going on overseas. That's going to change the defense budget. That's going to change what kind of products, missiles, armor, guns that are being sent to, say, Israel or something like that. The IT piece, with the missile defense systems and everything that's going on. So unfortunately, there's conflicts, but, look, people this year during.
Well, and Mike, thank you for mentioning that. And this is one of the things that I'm always trying to make sure that we direct people into understanding and really not to be afraid everything that's going on. We need better efficiency in many areas, and where efficiency comes in with all of the people that we actually help here at FMR Capital and my team, we found that basically the more efficiencies we have, the better the business does. And there's more opportunities because we're reevaluating how to do things better for the greater good of the company and the employees and so forth. So I know we have a couple of minutes, we have about 8 minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, in the opportunities that we see, and then I know the government is right now making, this huge effort on the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. A lot of people that have been clients of ours and clients of yours, and that we talk about these things, some of them understand already working with the government. They like government working and fulfilling those contracts. The new people that are listening to us that haven't got into it, they need to understand that there's a huge opportunity for them. And all of these sectors are going to need fulfillment. So the government is not going to go and basically create all of these construction companies. They're not going to go create all of these food and beverage companies. No, they're going to contract those things to be able to continue to keep running efficiently. And that's where our audience has really a huge opportunity to be able to capitalize on this. I don't know if you want to expand on what industries you think.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. What we've looked at, and that's another part of our services for us to do analysis, is that we've seen that the government, number one, is going to be your IT business. And it used to be your laptops, your desktops, your iPads. Now, with everything going to the cloud, cybersecurity, AI is a big talking point, virtual reality, augmented reality. So if you're in the IT business, even if you're in IT and construction, right, you're in the construction, but in the there's going to be construction with warehouses. The government, what they do, and I do want to talk about construction next, is in construction and real estate, is the government leases office space and warehouse space, tons of it, millions and millions of square feet all over the country. And so it is local specific. There's also contracts for inspection and fixing floors and windows and roofs and inspecting ovens and refrigerators and AC and plumbing in barracks in the dormitories. So there's all kinds. Medical is huge. So your IT, your medical, construction, real estate, logistics, those are going to be really your top 3 and 4, 5 really. Then there's a lot of support services like auditing. And so your white collar business that say are working with the Office of Personnel Management, even with this transition, there's still going to be, look, you still have 4 million federal government employees that work. They haven't been laid off yet. Some will be laid off. I believe that with the DOGE that you mentioned, that's the Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going to make this more, they're going to cut $2 trillion of spending over the next 20 years. They're still going to be spending. We still have a Navy. We're going to have a bigger Navy, I think. I also think that we're going to have, a stronger AI. AI is going to be a big topic. We're going to have a stronger cybersecurity. We're going to have a stronger counterterrorism with, unfortunately, this event that just happened in New Orleans. We're going to have stronger allies across the world. I think that, that there'll be more of the negotiation and less of the conflicts. And so that's going to dictate policy. And you're right, Andreas. I do want to mention this as an exclamation point. People should not be afraid. Government is not the actors that we see on TV. I'm just going to mention their names: President Biden, VP Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, all the Nancy Pelosi's. That's not who we work with. We work with the contract manager that's working in Northern Virginia or Baltimore, Maryland, or even in D.C., or even they're sitting in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and they're a civilian, and they're just doing their job, and their job is to spend money and to buy motorcycles for Lackland Air Force Base.
That's a great example. I mean, I know we did, we talked about that before. So the government still is going to need to fulfill all of these needs from the government, the federal, state, and municipalities are going to do it. And as we see on the screen, a little bit of a picture right here from what they spent on 2023. And we see that, what did they buy? What did they buy the government in 2023? They bought, number one, support and professional services and other. They bought medical, general health care, operation of miscellaneous buildings. They need to maintain those buildings. Operations of government, R&D, GoCo facilities, IT, and telecom. It's another huge one. You have the total that was spent on defense agencies. It was about $230 billion in support, professional engineering, technical, medical, national defense, R&D, Department of Defense, military, experimental. So all of those departments don't just function, and they don't just have all of these factories fulfilling all of those things. They need the small to medium-sized enterprises to come in and fulfill those, operations as well.
So I want to expand on that for just a second, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So one of the processes that we go through at GovBidPro to help our clients, RFI, RFQ, and RFP, request for information, which is also source of solve, market survey, market research. So what happens is, let's take the VA, which is the largest healthcare system in the world, that handles our veterans and provides the healthcare system for them, right?
Yeah.
That budget's not going to go down. I don't care what letter is after your name, whether it's D or R or independent, and we try not to get political, but that's the largest healthcare system. So say the VA says, hey, we need to have more cybersecurity for our patient data, right? Or we need to construct a new hospital in let's say, Tampa Bay, Florida, in Clearwater. I'm just giving you an example. So what they'll do is say, let's do a market survey. Let's do a request for information. We find that request for information on SAM.gov, send it to you, the client, and say, look, send a 10-page capability statement.
I love that.
And that turns into an RFP later.
And I want to go back to, a little bit of a list that you share, in regards to how businesses can work with you. If you want to go ahead and walk us through this list so we can inform people.
Absolutely. First off, we thank you for sharing the list, Andres. We offer a complimentary consultation to understand your business, to learn about your business and learn about what are your plans in the next 12 to 18 to 24 months, because that's really the process, and it's a long sales cycle with the government. So what are your plans? It's totally different than business to business, but B2B. This is B2G now, right? This is the checklist of what you want to have prepared if you're going to get in front of the government. They're going to do the research on you. So number one, have your website cleaned up with domain name, your phone number. You can get an office number, a Google number. That's what I have. You want to have a professional email address with the domain name. So like a mike@govbidpro.com. Your social media, make sure that's cleaned up. Your maybe not so much the Facebook and Twitter, which now is called X, but LinkedIn. The government contract managers are on LinkedIn right now, so have that ready to go. Your corporate structure, you're going to need that. You want to be, have it a certain incorporation, LLC, what your accounting and what your financial professional would suggest. Business banking, number 6, very important. So as you're registering within SAM.gov for what's called a CAGE code, commercial and government entity, they're going to look and see, do you have all your taxes are paid, if you have any unpaid child support, if you have that situation, they're going to make sure don't have any felonies. Make sure that you're in the United States with a United States address. You're a company in the United States to get what's called a CAGE code, a commercial and government entity. When you do that, you're entering your business bank checking account into a secured website, sam.gov. Down the road, when you get the purchase order and you deliver, they're going to send in a receiving report to what's called DFAS, the Defense Financial and Accounting Service. They're in Columbus, Ohio, by the way, and they're going to press a button and pay you, and then that's going to go to your business bank checking account. So you got to have your business bank checking account. That's number 6. Have all your credit set up, your business credit. You're going to need that for the resellers out there. When you have a distributor, they're going to say, hey, what's your credit like? If we're going to lend you, we're going to give you net 30 terms. Say you go to CDW to buy some computers. They want to give you 30-day net 30, right? Make sure your business credit's set up. It may be that you need to look at your personal credit as well to start that, to supplement the business credit. I've had folks with that. The woman-owned, that is through the SBA. We can walk you through that. The woman-owned certification. The veteran-owned, that is through the VA and the SBA. Talk about a little bit of bureaucracy, but we can walk you through this entire checklist and the to-do list with a complimentary consultation. It's 20 minutes, maybe half an hour for like folks like myself that like to talk more and get to know you and get to know your goals and get to know what you're trying to do. Are you trying to land one contract and have what's called an IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity? And there's a lot that we could talk about. Or are you trying to get 30, 35, 40 small purchase orders that are between 25 grand and 150 grand, like we talked about earlier, and just do high volume and make a 5, 10%, 15% margin? So it depends what your strategy is.
Absolutely. Well,
if you're in something specialized like a construction, like you mentioned, Andres, construction, you're going to, yep, sure. Yeah, it's if you're going to build a bridge, you're going to have the financing for the construction equipment and the labor, and then the government's going to pay you at the end. They're going to make sure the bridge is okay. They're going to fill out a receiving report, say, hey, this bridge is good to go. This subway tunnel is good to go. This highway is good to go, and then they're going to pay you at the end. Now, we've seen, and again, we're going to go over this in the future podcast, is sometimes it's benchmark. So you get 30% when you do this and another 30% when you do XYZ, and then the remainder 40% when you're done. So there are some contracts like that, but mainly for small businesses, you deliver, you invoice, you get paid, and it's net 30, and the government's always paid. That's another great thing. And one more thing that I want to add to this. In B2B, we have to sell, right? We have to go do networking. We have to go to trade shows. We have to, maybe do some cold calling if you're still doing that. We have to do email marketing. With government, they're soliciting with request for quote, request for proposal on SAM.gov. You go to them. Yeah, is there competition? You bet there is. So that's something that we talk about in our complimentary consultation is how much competition do you have? Let's do some analysis. What have been some of the winning contracts in the last 2, 3 years, 4 years, maybe go back 5 years. So we go back to the Biden-Harris administration, and then we go back into the last couple of years of the Trump-Pence administration, say, this is what you can expect. So you have to look at your cost, because I talk to small businesses all day long and I say, what's your cost of project, right? COP, that's one of the acronyms. What is your cost? If your cost is so much with logistics and delivery and, for example, we just had a purchase order, and my client is one of those clients that he does printers. Every kind of printer that you could think of, he does, right? So he landed a contract for 10 3D printers. But what he got was, just to give the viewers an example, he got a purchase order for the 10 3D printers, plus the installation, plus the training, and plus the warranty. Those are called line items. So that's what you could expect. The government wants full service. They don't want just a cardboard box. So the government wants full service. They don't want just a whole bunch of laptops or a whole bunch of computers, or in this case, 3D printers. They want you to install it. They want you to train them for 2 days, and they want 3-year warranty.
That's great. That's great, Mike. Thank you. No, because, well, you mentioned something, but that is not just about, let's say, supplying a product, or let's say, and you have consumables, that are, I was thinking toilet paper. How much toilet paper does the government? It has to be a huge contract, right? I'm just saying, or if it's one, or if it's several on different municipalities and different, state and all of that. But honestly, Mike, the problem with this conversation is that it's so much information, so many things to really review. The list right here, it's for our viewers to be able to get a little bit of a sense of what does it take, what do I need to get ready? And if you have those things ready, or if you need help completing a lot of those things, that's why, experts like you are here. Here at Evermar Capital, we're also here to serve as well. And
right.
But I think that it's very necessary that people understand that this process is going to be not just to place the products and services, it's also to maintain those products and services into the government. For the people that really want to have a long relationship, I think that's the biggest opportunity. So, Mike, honestly, today, I'm so grateful that we were able to have this conversation for people to understand a little bit about what is this government contracting thing. I think we need to go back, and with our audience, probably after, the inauguration of the new president of the United States.
Right.
And we can talk a little bit about what those changes look like, because we're all also expecting that basically the government is going to establish maybe new rules. A couple of the changes may be happening, but that's why we're here. We're here to be able to guide, folks through the process. And so let's plan for a second conversation probably after January 20th. And I am so grateful that we were able to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you again after the 20th. And tell people where they can find you again, where they can go, your website, phone number, all that.
Sure, absolutely. Sure. You can find us on LinkedIn under GovBidPro and under Mike Menahem. If you're an email person like me, it's mike@govbidpro.com, mike@govbidpro.com. Phone number, if you want to call me, you're welcome to it. My office is 505-585-1749.